Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. Today, we are going to dive headfirst into a truly profound philosophical framework. Seriously, if you've ever felt completely overwhelmed by the crushing pressures of modern life, or maybe experienced that kind of weird, hollow sense of distance while just brushing your teeth on a Tuesday morning, well, you are absolutely in the right place. We're going to explore the deep roots of estrangement and our fundamental human need to belong, using a brilliant philosophical text that breaks down exactly why we feel the way we do.
Let's actually kick things off with a pretty heavy but powerful thought from the text. Alienation begins when the self looks at its own life and feels like a stranger standing inside it. It's an incredible insight, isn't it? It speaks so directly to that quiet, internal experience of feeling like an absolute outsider in your own day-to-day existence. And really, it sets the perfect stage for everything we're going to unpack today.
All right, Section 1, more than just loneliness. We need to look at the crucial difference between being alone and feeling estranged.
So there is a really sharp line between two concepts we actually confuse all the time: loneliness and alienation. Loneliness, that's simply the pain of being alone. It's literal isolation. But alienation? That is the pain of being a stranger in your own life, even when you're surrounded by other people. I mean, think about it. You can have a great job, a massive circle of friends, and perform your daily routine absolutely perfectly, yet still feel completely and totally disconnected from your labor, your society, and even yourself.
So what exactly is it? Well, we define alienation as the experience of separation, estrangement, or disconnection from something that should feel meaningful, familiar, or your own. It creates this haunting, quiet internal feeling of, I'm here, but I don't belong here. It happens when the continuity between your past and your present, or between who you are and what brings you meaning, is just completely broken.
Moving on to Section 2, Strangers to Ourselves. This is all about when our identity and our inner voice become totally foreign to us.
Self-alienation actually has some pretty distinct symptoms. You might find yourself just kind of moving through life mechanically, or fulfilling roles while feeling totally inwardly absent. Maybe you've outgrown an inherited identity, like a family role or a specific job title, or you're caught in this exhausting cycle of repeated self-betrayal, living falsely just to please the people around you. The source text points out something fascinating. When we act against our own values merely to survive a system's expectations, our self stops being a lived reality. It just becomes a performance.
Have you ever caught yourself thinking things like, I do not recognize myself, or I'm so tired of pretending, or even, nothing feels real? These are literally the thoughts of the alienated inner voice. And the absolute most crucial takeaway here is that this numbness, this vast inner distance you feel, shouldn't be ignored. It is not a malfunction of your brain, it's a message.
Okay, Section 3, the modern alienation machine. Let's look at how society and systems actually engineer this disconnection. This engineered disconnect is literally everywhere in our lives. Think about work. People are constantly treated as machines, metrics, or completely replaceable functions, which entirely strips away human dignity. In tech and social media, we get connection, sure, but without any real intimacy. It's visibility without actual recognition. Then you've got consumer culture, literally selling us this ridiculous, false promise that buying more stuff will somehow heal our emptiness. And finally, the sheer, relentless speed of modern life creates this fast existence with absolutely zero pause to reflect, mourn, or truly arrive in the present moment.
And it gets deeper because this systemic disconnect is baked right into the structures of power. Power can alienate people by turning them into objects, tools, categories, or statistics. The text really emphasizes that injustice and bureaucracy compound our emptiness by denying us basic moral recognition. When a citizen is reduced to a mere function, like being just a taxpayer or another case number, they essentially disappear behind that label. It makes them entirely invisible.
Which brings us to Section 4, Culture, Migration, and Belonging. We're going to look specifically at the Filipino experience of divided identity to understand this better. Take the cycle of migration, for example. It's really a three-step process. First, there's leaving home, which means a very real separation from your familiar identity. Second, arriving in a new place, which means immediate, intense alienation in that new country. And finally, divided belonging. The text beautifully describes this as a profound philosophical homesickness. The migrant loses their seamless connection to their homeland, but never quite feels fully recognized or at home in their new country. It's this strange paradox where they belong everywhere and nowhere all at once.
And when you look closely at this cultural aspect, there's a really sharp contrast between two specific mindsets. On one hand, we have cultural dignity, which is an honest, grounded reconnection with one's roots without any false sense of superiority. But countering that is the alienating effect of a colonial mentality. This actually teaches people to view themselves through another power's eyes, internalizing foreign standards. This creates a really deep shame and literally estranges an individual from their own people, their own appearance, and their own history.
But you know, alienation doesn't just happen across oceans. It happens right at home, too. Consider the sheer weight of family expectations. You can feel entirely unknown despite immense family closeness. A person can become completely trapped playing the good child or the provider. The alienation creeps in because the acceptance feels highly conditional, and their sense of duty ends up completely burying the truth of who they actually are. Their love for the role they perform, not for their true unseen self.
So, what does this all mean? Well, the crucial point is really captured in this one existential question. Is alienation merely the pain of being disconnected, or is it a sign that the human soul is searching for a truer form of belonging? That forces us to reconsider our pain, not just as a permanent state of suffering, but as a potential philosophical awakening.
All right, Section 5, the path to reconnection. How do we actually transform this estrangement into authenticity?
To transform this alienation, the text prescribes 4 deliberate steps. First, you have to actually listen to the alienation. Interpret what feels foreign rather than just instinctively running away from it. Second, return to the self. And, as the text gently reminds us, self-return is absolutely not selfishness. It's about recovering your inner voice and asking what you truly believe. Third, seek meaningful connection by building relationships that actually dignify you. And fourth, pursue meaningful work and wisdom that respects your basic humanity.
But, and this is the big but, this cure requires some serious bravery. The text says authenticity means living in closer alignment with truth, but authenticity may cost false belonging. To truly heal your alienation, you have to actively choose true authenticity over simply performing for society. And doing that means you might actually have to give up the comfortable false sense of belonging you've been clinging to for so long.
There is, however, this really beautiful secondary effect to the whole process. Wisdom actually transforms alienation into profound compassion for other outsiders. Once you truly understand your own experience of being on the outside, it transforms into moral sensitivity. It makes you deeply, authentically compassionate toward others in society who are excluded, ignored, or unseen.
So let's lock in this ultimate reframe right now. Alienation is not an exile, it is a signal. Feeling empty isn't some massive personal failure. Actually, scratch that. It's not a failure at all. It is vital, urgent information pointing you away from a dehumanizing system, away from playing false roles, and pointing you directly toward a life of genuine meaning, justice, and connection.
I want to leave you with this incredibly provocative final thought directly from the book. The task is not merely to fit back into a false world, but to build a life where belonging no longer requires self-betrayal. So ask yourself, what part of yourself have you been betraying just to fit in? And what would your life look like if you finally stopped? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I really hope this gives you the framework you need to start building a truer sense of home.